Wanted to turn to domestic politics and what is unfolding right now down in Florida. So, we've been talking about the fact that abortion politics, ever since Roe was overturned in the Dobbs Supreme Court decision, have been a total electoral disaster for Republicans. Wherever you stand on the issue, I just don't think that's deniable at this point. I mean, you saw the pro-choice position winning in places like Kansas. Just last week, we had in Wisconsin, the most 50-50 state you could possibly get. You have the state Supreme Court seat that is won overwhelmingly by a liberal candidate who is running on abortion access, and she wins by 11 points in the state of Wisconsin. So I think the electoral significance of this issue is pretty clear at this point. However, Ron DeSantis is moving forward with quite an extreme bill that is being passed right now through the Florida legislature. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. So he is, in the words of Politico, charging ahead on a 6-week abortion ban. They say that the governor's support might seem politically risky, but he's been backing restrictive abortion policy for years. Apparently, he initially signaled support for a 6-week abortion ban during his first race for governor. Currently in Florida, they've instituted a 15-week ban that includes some exemptions for the life of the mother, but very limited, and I can give you some more details on that in a moment. You have people who are on the religious right who are pro-life activists really praising him for making this move. They say it makes it clear that DeSantis is solidly pro-life. He's trying to move the ball for the protection of the unborn and can be trusted to do that in the future. That's according to the president of the Florida Family Policy Council. And you've got some Republican consultants. I think this is interesting, Saagar. I'm interested to get your reaction on this, who are basically saying DeSantis's whole play here is to have his list of policy accomplishments through the Florida legislature be what positions him properly for the Republican primary. So you've got one top Republican Florida consultant saying if he decides to run, he wants to have the most robust cultural and policy conservative list of accomplishments. This makes him impervious to hits from the right. And to show you how complicated this is, even in the state of Florida, some of the Republicans who won in Biden districts actually are not backing the 6-week ban. So even within the state of Florida, even among the Republican Party, this is quite controversial. But, personally, I think if DeSantis believes that his positioning within the Republican primary is going to be based on whatever he does in the Florida legislative session, I don't know what race he's running.
Well, this is the issue. Let's look at this on the merits. So first of all, for the people who are willing to have abortion be more of a compromise issue, you're going to vote for Trump. Why wouldn't you vote for Trump? That's actually 1/3 of the people who voted for Trump in 2016 were pro-choice. They just didn't care that much. And then if you are trying to win hardline abortion voters like evangelicals, why wouldn't they just vote for Mike Pence, who's going to be for a national abortion ban? He's like 6 weeks. What are you talking about 6 weeks? That's way too much. I'm for a full-scale ban. Now, not a lot of people are for it, but those maybe 13% or whatever of the country, but they all vote Republican and they're all evangelicals and they're going to support somebody like Pence. So who exactly are you targeting here? You're basically pushing legislation which is dramatically politically unpopular on a national level and most likely in the state of Florida. And then second, you are trying to do it to burnish your credentials in a almost like targeted way that somehow strikes at exactly the middle of nowhere. Like there are two chasms in the debate. There's Trump, who thinks that the Roe versus Wade overturn, he will take credit for it, but politically knows it's a disaster.
Yeah.
And then there's Pence, who is like, no, we didn't go far enough. We need to outright ban abortion. Who are you going for? There's just not a lot of voters in the 6-week category. They're either basically for a ban or they're like ish pro-life, I guess. And then a lot of people, and even those people most likely will vote for Trump since he's the one who got Roe versus Wade overturned, or they're just straight up pro-choice voters, which is some 75% or whatever of the entire country.
Matt Iglesias made actually a good point about this, which is Ron DeSantis's most compelling lane in the Republican primary is like, I'm a more electable version of Trump. And I've always been skeptical that that was going to be a winning argument because, frankly, I just don't think the GOP base, I don't think they see it that way. I think they believe Trump is perfectly electable. After all, he was president before. I don't think they put the priority on electability that the Democratic base seems to. So I was always skeptical of that case. But that's his strongest argument, is like, if you want to beat Joe Biden and the Democrats, you might like Donald Trump, but now we've got a record of several election cycles that didn't go well for Republicans. Let's go with the guy who is more electable. Passing a 6-week abortion ban, which is insanely unpopular in Florida and everywhere else. It's not even really popular with the Republican base. It's popular with like the most activist part of the religious right, no doubt about it. But this is insanely unpopular. How does that make you more electable in a general election? And it's not just on this. I mean, Trump has been hitting him hard on Social Security and Medicare. DeSantis has positioned himself in terms of policy and ideology to the right of Trump, especially on issues where the Republican elite, like hard right position, is actually out of step, definitely with the country and actually with a significant part of the Republican base. So in my opinion, when you look at this, he's damaging his ability to make that electability argument, which is the strongest case that he really can make both to GOP voters and to the donors that he will need in order to back his campaign. Just to underscore this and how unpopular this position is, and frankly, this was not cherry-picked. This is one of the maybe more beneficial polls in terms of the 6-week abortion ban. Like, it shows that having higher numbers than I've seen in some other polls, but I didn't want to like sandbag the case. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. According to their survey, first of all, 60% of voters now say abortion should be legal in all or most cases. That has actually gone up by 5 points and reflects the fact that since the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe versus Wade, support for abortion rights nationwide has actually gone up. So the pro-choice position hasn't stayed this 50-50 issue that people have assumed. The pro-choice position has actually become significantly more popular, not just in this poll, but other polls as well. 29% said it should be illegal except in cases of rape, incest, and when the woman's life is in danger. 6% say it should be illegal in all cases. Okay, that's down from what it used to be, was at 11%, which was still very low, but again, shows you that shift. When you're specifically talking about an abortion ban at 6 weeks of pregnancy, 62% oppose that ban. Just about 25% say they support a 6-week abortion ban. So this is a wildly unpopular position. And we have also seen, sometimes things are unpopular, but they're not particularly motivating to voters. This issue has been extremely motivating for voters in a way that, again, I didn't necessarily foresee.
Oh, no, I didn't foresee it nearly either. I think really because what it did is it activated a bunch of people who just don't vote that much. I mean, that's what we really saw in Wisconsin. I also would just say it really underscores the biggest political noose around the Republicans' necks. They outperformed dramatically in many elections in Wisconsin, except for one that happened to do with abortion. So if the Democrats can make 2024 all about abortion, it will be dramatically to their benefit. It puts Trump in a very difficult political position. And, I don't really know how he can possibly wriggle his way out of that one, because you can't disavow your own voters while also trying to win over swing voter, because they basically are diametrically opposed. I saw Ryan Gerdusky, who is a DeSantis supporter, say that the 6-week ban is the single most unpopular thing that Ron DeSantis has ever done. It's interesting too, because that's where the institutional GOP is most aligned with him.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be the toughest one to square.
As someone who has had 3 babies, at 6 weeks, it is rare that you even know that you're pregnant. Like, that's how early you're talking. There's already stories, I was just reading these horrible cases that the Washington Post documented with the 15-week ban, which has these limited exceptions for the life of the mother. But it's only when you really are on death's door that they will, even with the 15-week ban, if you're beyond that they will actually perform the abortion when mother's life may not be, imminently in danger right at that second, but is very much at risk. They documented these 2 women who around week 18, their water broke. Now, this is, long before fetal viability. And these were women who had struggled to carry pregnancies to term in the past. And in any other, state where abortion is legal, the standard of care is that you offer the women at least the ability to have the abortion. The baby is not going to live. And if you allow the mother to go through with wait for the miscarriage to happen, they're at much heightened risk of infection and much heightened risk of hemorrhaging. Well, one of these women, she ends up hemorrhaging to the point that she loses half of her body's blood, nearly dies, has to be put in a medically induced coma. So we're already talking about a situation where women's lives are at risk, even with something like a 15-week abortion ban, which is already in Florida. You can only imagine the sort of horror stories that are going to come out when you have a 6-week ban in place. And do you think that the press is going to ignore what is happening to these women and their stories and the way that they're being put at risk because of these new policies? I don't think so. So in any case, I think he's delusional in terms of the Republican primary. If he thinks his little legislative record down in Florida is going to be what sways voters at this point, you can see the Republican primary is going to be dominated by Trump, his indictments, people coming after Trump. That's the landscape that you've set up. And then if your strongest case is I'm the electability candidate, you are just cutting yourself off at the knees in terms of that position.
There's no question a 6-week ban is just dramatically politically unpopular for many of the reasons that you just cited. I will say 15-week ban has a significant amount of popularity. That was at least at some point post-Dobbs was around like 70% approval. And look, I mean, we in Europe, like Germany has a 12-week ban, like I think France is at 14 weeks. Now, I don't know about
They have much broader availability to receive care based on risk to the mother.
Right, so I was going to say, it seems that they have more exceptions outside of like elective abortion, which I think most people are broadly on par with. So I'm more saying like, it seems quite reasonable to have some 15-week standard with the elective or with the proviso that anybody whose life is in danger also has access to an abortion. Just from a general, like actual where we could land on all of this for a national public policy.
I wanted to pull up the numbers because here's part of, the public sentiment has really shifted post-Dobbs consistently, not just in this Wall Street Journal poll, but in effectively every Gallup's polling, Pew's polling. People have become more pro-choice. I think it's partly because they've seen these bans go into effect and they've seen the way that the law has been applied. And so when you say in Florida, the life of the mother's at risk, they really mean like you have to be about to die right then and there. They don't take into account, well, if you don't have this procedure, you're going to have, the baby is not going to live. Like that's off the table. You are going to have this elevated risk of massive hemorrhage, threatening your life, potential infection. And so you have already numbers in states that have the ban where women are having much worse outcomes in terms of their health during pregnancy, or states that don't have these bans that have not been instituted. So I'm looking, the Wall Street Journal poll had numbers, I believe, on abortions after 6 weeks. As I said, only 26% support it. Abortions after 15 weeks, it's almost identical. It's like 27% support it, maybe 30. They have this like bar chart where they don't give the specific numbers, but it's not popular. Maybe it was more popular before these bans went into effect, but now that people have seen the impact and what it actually means in real terms for women's lives, you're talking about a few more percentage points popularity than the 6-week abortion ban.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. I'm more thinking about like where some sort of grand bargain actually could be struck in terms of where people feel comfortable. I don't know what has any support then. Just what is it? Roe versus Wade, like the first trimester?
Yeah, I mean, I think Roe versus Wade. Yes, I think that is correct because remember, Roe versus Wade was only about pre-viability. So post-viability, then states could do whatever they wanted.
Right.
So in states like Mississippi, I mean, they basically had, with Roe versus Wade plus Casey, they had already basically banned abortion in the state. There was like one clinic open, and then that was under pressure to close, et cetera. And that was permitted. I personally don't support that, but that was the landscape ahead of time. And I think that is generally where most people are. It's like 60% of the public that is, generally pro-choice, generally believes abortion should be available in all or most cases. So, I think that's where the public sentiment is at this point.
See, I'm not sure, though, about all or most cases, because isn't all or most cases include late-term abortions? I mean, like here in D.C.
all cases would be late-term. Most cases would be the sorts, people like how they personally define it, I think really is very different.
Right.
But for a lot of people, they'd say in most cases is, pre-viability or something like that. So listen, Americans have always had mixed, complicated views on the issue, which I understand because I'm not going to deny it's like a morally fraught and difficult and complicated issue. There's just like no doubt about that. But Number one, sentiment has moved in the pro-choice direction post-Dobbs, I think because of the reality of some of the situation. Number two, now the ground that Republicans are exclusively fighting on is definitionally extreme.
Yeah, that absolutely true.
Because to go further than what the court has already done is just definitionally going to put you on the wrong side of public opinion in any case.
6 weeks, no question about it. It is the single most unpopular thing the man will do. Will it matter? We'll find out.
In the same respect, there are some warning signs being raised from a bunch of Republican strategists. Just some of these quotes are funny, so let's go ahead and put this up on the screen from Politico. They say, as Trump dominates the airwaves, quote, "It feels like effing 2016." Terry Sullivan, who ran Marco Rubio's 2016 campaign for president, said, "This is deja vu all over again. Trump dominates media coverage, making it impossible for his competitors to get any coverage or for attraction." Another Republican strategist who supports DeSantis but was granted anonymity to speak freely said, "It feels like effing 2016. Is there anything that can suck up as much political oxygen in the American political landscape as Trump? I don't think so." And then they had this anecdote that is brutal. DeSantis went to New York, to Long Island recently to promote his book or whatever and his potential candidacy. He was greeted by, they say, a number of New Yorkers in MAGA hats and a sign that read, "DeSantis 2028. So not this election cycle, but maybe next one we'd give you a shot, suggesting you get out of Trump's way. Then Politico went to the event where DeSantis was speaking, and they said that nearly all of the attendees that they interviewed spoke favorably about DeSantis, but said they are already committed to supporting the ex-president's comeback bid. So like, yeah, we like him, but you know, we're with Trump.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's 2016 all over again in terms of his domination in the race. And I think very specifically for a reason, especially as you said, citing the Iglesias point that a lot of what DeSantis does, or at least says that he wants to do to try to be electable, is less politically popular than what Trump wants to do. So we'll see which one wins out. I honestly have no idea.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.